Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Take It Tuesday webinar. I'm Liz Downing. I'm the Senior Manager of Events and Partnerships at Takeometrics. Takeometrics is a powerful advertising partner for brands that are selling on multiple marketplaces. And I've got my lovely co-host, Madeline Dutton. She's the Outreach Manager at Takeometrics. Madeline, say hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And we have our friend David Koifman here. He's the VP of Sales at KickFurther. David, say hello.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Madeline. Great to be back.
I'm going completely off book, opposite of what I just said we were going to do before we started the broadcast, but that's okay. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. The session is being recorded. It will be emailed to all registrants. It doesn't mean that you can leave, because if you're here live and you have questions, you can pop those into the question section of GoToWebinar, and we will answer them live because we care about your questions and we love those. That makes this more conversational, and that's the kind of webinar we prefer to run. So let's get going. David, let's first learn a little bit about you. What's your favorite pizza topping?
That's a tough question. I guess I should have been more prepared for that one. Probably mushroom as a single topic, but I'm a big fan of like a meatball ricotta. That's also delicious.
Yum. I've got kind of food on the brain. I was telling everybody earlier, I hope that my stomach didn't growl audibly during this webinar. So if you hear that and you want to laugh at me, you can pop something in the chat. LOL, Liz, I heard it. David, tell us a little bit about your background.
So I live in Golden, Colorado. I've been a sales leader in financial technology for the last 9.5, almost 10 years now. Been with KickFurther for 6 years, and we run a inventory financing marketplace that helps serve e-commerce, Amazon sellers, basically anybody who's buying physical goods and then selling them at a later date for a higher price.
6 years in the e-commerce space is like 20 years in any other industry. That's a good run. That's a good time. So Prime Day happened. I was actually just going through some data with a brand, and the brand was saying, well, this and this and this. And I was like, yes, but you have to remember that it was Prime Day. And if your price was lower, that was because you were offering promotions. And let's start with a couple key insights from Prime Day. David, what did you hear from the brands that you work with in terms of how Prime Day performed this year?
I think everybody killed it. I didn't talk specifically to too many brands about it, but the ones I did speak with had beyond expectation sales. And, for us, we hear from them when they're selling through their inventory, either at an expected rate or quicker than expected, and then they need to fund more for their next production run if they're running low. So definitely, more customers are coming back after Prime Day, preparing for Q4, which is just around the corner.
That's cool. We saw some like 233% year over year and crazy numbers like that. It was really exciting.
Was that across any specific categories or just overall?
I think one was electronics, because everybody's looking for electronics. I think that, Madeline, can you remember any of the other? I think toys and games.
Home decor was another big one, household goods.
Yeah, that's always a killer. It was the first day of Prime Day was the single largest sales day on Amazon like ever. It was a banner day. I think it was like 370 million items were purchased on just the first day of Prime Day. So that's huge. I know I was shopping. I was looking for a pool vacuum. I talk about this in every webinar and every podcast I'm on. I really want that pool vacuum. But it was really good for third-party sellers too. So third-party sellers, actually the sales outpaced Amazon's own Prime Day sales. So that sort of underscores key selling dates and key selling times and the benefits and advantages there are to third-party sellers. We know that Amazon themselves pushes products hard and there are great deals on Amazon products, but it's a great time for third-party sellers too, and so is Q4. So Q4 is right around the corner. Actually, another Prime Day is around the corner in October. Dates haven't been announced yet, but there's going to be another one. And in terms of our data, there was a second Prime Day in 2022. And while it didn't perform with the brands that we work with quite as well as I think it was in June 2022, but the summer Prime Day, it was still a really strong selling day. And right before Q4, that's pretty exciting. And then we had brands that had just amazing Q4s. So I sort of want to talk today, the main thesis of today is how to get yourself ready for Q4 using what you learned from Prime Day, both in terms of your inventory strategy, your available cash flow, and in terms of your advertising. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I encourage you, if you're here live and you're spending your time in the middle of the day, wherever you are, it might be in the middle of the night, wherever you are, but if you're spending the time to be here with us live, you might have questions. So let us answer them for you. Please pop them in the question section of GoToWebinar. And then if you have questions that you don't quite feel comfortable being asked, live on Takeometrics TV, then feel free to email us. You can email us at info@takeometrics.com, or you can email me personally at ldowning@takeometrics.com, and we'll make sure we get you the answers. And that can be any question you have. It doesn't have to just be about finance, inventory, and advertising. We're here to help you. So
I have sort of an obvious question, if that's okay.
yeah, sure.
How do Black Friday sales historically compare to Prime Day sales?
I think it definitely depends on the category, but sorry, we have a personal question in there that I'm going to address in just a second. I can't quite recall like category specific. We've got benchmark reports we can share about Black Friday and about Prime Day. We're actually working on a Prime Day and a W plus days. So Walmart did their own version of Prime Day over Prime Day. I do not think that Prime Day 2020, Black Friday 2022, I mean, obviously in terms of Amazon, it didn't eclipse this Prime Day because this Prime Day was the biggest selling day ever. And it was a huge day for us. So I would say that this Prime Day did better than Black Friday did 2022, but I think it's a pretty good indicator that Black Friday 2023 is going to be pretty huge.
Yeah, makes sense.
Steven asked, where did the Beatles poster go? And they're actually Beatles paintings and they're right over there, Steven. So don't worry, I didn't get rid of them, but I used to always have these Beatles paintings behind me when I did live presentations. So that's where they are. They're just over there. And thanks for being here, Steven. So you said that people are definitely ramping up to order more inventory. So you're feeling like people sold through real well during Prime Day?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, most of our customers are coming to us to buy inventory for, anywhere from like 3 to 6 months at a time. So Prime Day isn't, or even Black Friday, like while it's going to be a large percentage of the sales, it's not going to I mean, if they're prepared well, it's not going to stock them out. If they're unprepared, it will. And that's where like every moment after that is you're just kicking yourself because you could be selling and instead you're waiting on the next order to arrive.
Definitely. You said when you gave an overview of Kick Further, you said that it was specifically inventory funding. I think we have a question. If someone gets funding from Kick Further, can they use that for other stuff, like for instance, advertising? Or is it particularly, how does it work, I guess? Like do you log into a thing? Do you, like, walk me through. I'm a brand, I want to order more inventory, or I want to borrow money from Kick Further. Like what's the process?
So business owners will come to us when they need to place orders with their manufacturers. Very specifically, money is available to pay for your supplier orders. Some people are buying finished goods. Others are buying components, assembling them. Some people are buying raw materials and making food or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But basically, people need money to make stuff or buy stuff that they're later going to sell. That's how funding is available from Kickfurther, based on the total order amounts. Now, paybacks happen when that inventory is produced, sold, and then cash flows come in from those sales. So the intention is always to address the exact cash flow pinch that a particular business experiences. So it's not like a standard 3-month or 6-month, whatever. We ask business owners, when do you need to pay your manufacturer? That's the day the money's available. Then we ask them, when are you going to sell through this inventory that we're paying for? And that'll indicate when they need to pay back. As far as using the funds for anything outside of inventory, inventory is just an expensive thing that you need to pay for. So if somebody else is paying for it, you're kind of freeing up that money to be spent on advertising or whatever else. It's definitely, in my experience, the most expensive thing that you need to pay for. Certainly is followed by advertising and logistics and fulfillment and all that. But as a single item, inventory is probably going to be your highest cost. So if you can free up the cash from that, you have more money to spend on whatever else you need.
We have a question from attendees. Are the 1P vendors you work with seeing stronger than average replenishment POs post Prime Day? Theirs have been a little underwhelming despite having a killer Prime Day. So with 1P people, are they getting more POs from Amazon, or are you not seeing an increase in that?
I think it's just like too early for me to have direct response on that. So sorry, I can't answer that question yet.
Ariel, just anecdotally, I've talked to a couple other 1P brands and they haven't seen an increase in POs either, but I think Amazon's actually like literally catching its breath from a hugely successful sales day, and it's probably going to take a little while. But yeah, I mean, you have to remember Amazon's a company too. And I think with unprecedented sales and unprecedented traffic, it takes a little while to figure out what's next. Madeline, do we have any other questions?
We do actually. And David, this is for you, diving a little bit deeper into the process of Kickfurther. How does Kickfurther differ from Amazon Capital?
So Amazon Capital is only available to Amazon sellers through Amazon. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, at least this is the way it was before, people are presented with offers if Amazon deems they're eligible. So it's not really something you can necessarily opt into unless you're presented with an offer. And it's also, it operates as a revenue finance or MCA, so to speak, where, it's just withdrawing funds out of every deposit that comes into your account. Our capital is available. It could be available many months in advance of when the paybacks are, because, some people are buying overseas. They have to place an order. It takes 30 days for that order to be produced, and then another 30 days on the water. And, you're looking at 2.5 months in that case before you even start seeing the cash coming back in. So it gives that breathing room to really capture the cash flow pinch that the business owner is experiencing. It's not like you take money and then on day 2 you start paying it back. So it intends to align more with the business schedules. As far as costs, I think it's comparable. Risk determines cost for us. So what we're looking for is data from bank account and Amazon account. And from there, we can quickly establish how much a business owner is eligible for and what their cost will be.
Cool.
Yeah. So another question that I actually have for you for my own personal knowledge, looking past Prime Day. So looking past this past summer's Prime Day, the October Prime Day coming up, looking into Q4. If someone is currently placing their orders, but they won't begin that selling until Q4, how can Kick Further help them cover that cash gap until they start receiving payments from those sales later towards the end of the year?
That's exactly, I mean, you're teeing it up for me. That's exactly what we're set up to do. So if you have supplier payments coming up in the next month, I mean, money, it takes about 2 weeks to get the funds available. So, you know, if you're looking to make those payments soon, then come to us now. If you know, it's better to be proactive than not. But and we can always actually reimburse people if they've already made payments to suppliers to free up the cash. So in any case, we can issue the payments to the suppliers, you know, anytime from 2 weeks forward, and then you'll be scheduling your own paybacks based on when you expect that inventory to sell. So if you know you want to pay your suppliers now, and then your big sales start around late October or early November, whatever, we can schedule the first paybacks to start at that time, and then have a payment due every 2 weeks until, let's say, January 30th or whatever makes sense for that run of inventory to sell through. Some businesses will buy just for the holiday season and you know expect to sell through by January 1st. Other businesses who want to have a little bit more cushion will buy inventory that's going to last them, let's say, through mid-January or even through February.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
But are your brands still seeing supply chain delays, or has everything opened up pretty well?
I think everything is sort of back to normal, but people have changed the way they operate, and that is reflected in larger, less frequent orders. I think they're just proactively trying to, you know, get ahead of any supply chain issues that may come up. So they just want to have more inventory on hand. And they're also discovering, well, one, the cost of freight went up. And while it's come back down, I don't think it's all the way down to where it was. But you're saving money on quantity discounts if you place orders for more inventory at the same time, and also on freight discounts if you're like filling an entire container or doing multiple containers. So we do see bigger orders, maybe less frequently. I would say, like, you know, when we work with businesses, it's never, I mean, sometimes it is, but mostly it's not just one deal. Businesses will use us on an ongoing basis every time they're ordering inventory to pay for those invoices. And those will come, you know, for some businesses, it's once a month. Like if you're manufacturing some sort of food product that, you know, we only do shelf stable kind of non-perishable stuff, but like those food manufacturing processes are kind of on a rolling basis. So those guys will sometimes do a deal once a month or once every 2 months, and then stuff that's coming from overseas or, you know, needs to be produced in larger quantities will be every 3, 4, 6 months, some even once a year.
So I'm super curious because I asked about supply chain delays. What was it like when COVID-19 happened and there was such a delay? Like, how did that impact the brands that you work with, and what sort of industry insights can you share in terms of the long-term repercussions of that particular time period?
I mean, it was kind of scary for a lot of people. I think, you know, some people accelerated really fast if they had access to, you know, more resilient supply chains. Some people grew super fast and then discovered that, you know, changes with the lockdowns and stuff were actually impacting their sales pretty heavily. Like, you know, if you look at, well, I mean, initially, like anybody with travel gear or anything like that was hit really hard. But then if you look at like home exercise stuff like that, absolutely took off. And then it just hit a wall when things loosened up because, you know, everybody who wanted it bought it. And then now there's probably a pretty big secondary market for that stuff on like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. But I know that, like, as an example, like nobody could get a bicycle, and now everybody's trying to get rid of their bicycle. You know, it's like I just, as an avid mountain biker, like it's crazy what has happened. But yeah, so many businesses just skyrocketed, and some over ordered, and then were found in a situation where they just needed to, offload stuff at a really low price that was probably pretty damaging to them. So yeah, a variety of different outcomes. But now people are ordering less frequently in larger quantities as a general trend.
Where do the majority of the brands you work with order their, where is most of their manufacturing? Is most people in China, or are you seeing other manufacturing locations become more common?
It's all over the world. All of our businesses are US based, but their manufacturing is all over the world. I think like 50% is US, something like 30 is China, and then the rest is scattered. I'm seeing more in Southeast Asia now, Vietnam, Thailand, those areas. I think people are, a little bit tentative about the relations with China, and then more in Mexico as well. So
Yeah.
that's sort of what I'm observing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing that too. A lot of a big shift to LATAM, actually. We do webinars about that, and those are pretty popular too. But I know Mexico and other Latin American locales are really trying hard to get the factories there up to speed with what brands that sell online actually need out of manufacturing, and learning how to spec faster and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty exciting to see, especially when you think about shipping time.
Yeah.
That's a
Because
pretty
you can do trucks instead of ships, and it's I've actually talked to a few business owners that are now fulfilling out of Mexico, and there's some tax benefits. I don't want to butcher them, but there is some benefits to fulfilling out of Mexico, and it's almost, it's almost as fast, if not at the same speed as shipping from a domestic warehouse, and you save a lot of money.
So I'm sorry if I missed this, but do you mainly work with just brands that are selling on Amazon, or is it multiple marketplaces?
It can be multiple marketplaces, or it can be direct to consumer, or it can be wholesale, or it can be distribution, like literally any means of selling. And I would say that the majority of our customers are multi-channel sellers. So they'll have an Amazon store, a Shopify store, and also be trying to get into, big retailers like Costco, Target, Whole Foods, all of them. But some are just e-com and some are just Amazon. So the idea is for us to be able to serve businesses who are looking to buy inventory to support all their sales channels. And that's a challenge. Like historically, I'm sure you guys have heard of accounts receivable factoring. That's a way that people used to finance inventory when they were delivering to, let's say Walmart or Costco. And then when you deliver the product, they give you payment terms, and you don't get paid for 30, 60, 90, sometimes 120 days. And so accounts receivable factoring is a way to get paid by the factor the day you deliver, and then they charge a percentage of the money that you received later from the buyer. And so that was a really effective way to sell things or to finance your inventory until, well, first of all, you don't have the money to pay the manufacturers up front. You're sort of constantly playing catch up. But until e-com became so big, when you can't factor Amazon inventory, you can't factor Shopify inventory. So how do you produce inventory to support all those channels, benefiting from the quantity discount, so you can buy everything at once and sell there, and there. And that's sort of the genesis of how Kickfurther and Amazon that you mentioned, and other players in the space came about.
That's cool. Madeline, do we have any questions?
We do not, but if anybody has any questions, be sure to put them in the question section and I will make sure that you get them answered.
Are you seeing more brands that are selling on Walmart?
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to get into Walmart. It's sort of like they want to be everywhere that the shoppers are, obviously. And as Walmart becomes more popular, they want to make sure that they're selling on Walmart. And I think like Walmart's, or at least agencies and sort of other service providers are focusing more on Walmart, and so drawing attention to becoming listed on the Walmart marketplace. And I think it also helps get in the stores, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it just depends. That just depends.
Yeah.
Of the sellers that you see that are selling on Walmart, how many of them are using, do you know how many are using WFS, Walmart Fulfillment Services, or do they not really tell you that part of it, like where they're sending it? You're just...
No, we do know exactly how they fulfill. It's important for us to know the entire flow of the inventory. And I actually have very infrequently seen WFS. So, I mean, FBA is like every other customer is using FBA, but much less with Walmart. How about you guys? Are you seeing more of that?
More and more WFS. They've sort of, so anybody who signs up now is just automatically enrolled in WFS from what I've heard. But at first it was difficult. We're actually doing, at the end of September, we're doing a World of Walmart 2-day event where we're going to have WFS on there talking about how to get on and make it work for you. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to talk a little bit about advertising because I feel like Prime Day, especially as explosive as this Prime Day was, I mean, we saw some significant sales, right? But sales are not the same things as clicks, And when you think about, you've run ads on a key selling day like Prime Day, and more people have seen your products because more people are shopping. 1, 2, you're advertising, so you're getting in more spots, you're getting to more places, ideally, right? So you've got more data than usual in terms of who's interacted with your ad products, right? There are things you can do with that data that will help set you up for success in Q4. And I'm not smart enough to know what all of those are. Laura Pattison, who is the genius on this, has a lot of information on that. Cameron Yoder did a great session with Amazon themselves about this, but there is a whole strategy you can employ with the increased data you've seen, all those clicks, all those eyes, where you can really start now being strategic about how you set up your advertising for success on Q4. And right now is when you should be doing it, right? I can't believe it's July the 25th to date this and make it not an evergreen webinar. It's July, y'all. I mean, it's almost August. We're getting into key Q4 planning time and it's all happening so fast. I think we all have whiplash. We're gonna do some targeted, like really deep dive content on that. So, and if you don't mind, people who are here and people who are watching after the fact, if you want us to send you that, we're gonna certainly do that. But there's just so much opportunity you have now with more people who know about your brand and people who have just subliminally seen it. And depending on how clever you were with your Prime Day advertising, the PDPs that you slipped into, and all those places you ended up, that can really benefit you in the coming months leading up to Q4 and during the Q4 key selling days. Dave, my friend, what other Q4 tips can you offer? I know that you focus mainly on providing capital for inventory, but you've been in this industry for 6 whole years. What are the key pain points you hear people talking about when Q4 rolls around?
I think it's, yeah, no, I'm ready to be on the spot. I think it's important to be prepared for, well, financing is really important, and it's not just inventory financing. You just want to make sure that you have the capital to run your business. As costs go up, across the board. You want to have the margins. Like when you decide you're going to spend a certain amount on advertising, it's important to be careful and go through the list of all your costs and not find that you're getting an unexpected outcome when you sell a bunch of stuff, but it actually didn't make you money. So I think it's really important to have the resources, whether it's, if you're savvy yourself, then yeah, do your own accounting. But we talk to a lot of contract CFOs, businesses that do really good work for Amazon sellers, and no plugs for anyone, but I just think that that's good practice to have somebody that knows the space and knows how to operate to, go through your financials. The financials are also reviewed carefully by financing organizations, whether it's through the transactions in your bank account where you sort of deduce the financials just in that, or directly getting reviewed. So it's important to like be cognizant of your balance sheet, how much debt you carry. And to drop a little plug for Kick Further, the inventory funding that we provide is not debt on your balance sheet. It's inventory that Kick Further owns and you're selling on behalf of Kick Further. So that is one of the benefits that makes you look better. And that's just the kind of thing that is sort of behind the scenes, but really important as you prepare for, big sales. And I think that's probably the best piece of advice that I have to offer.
I think that's pretty wise. And I actually, personally think it's totally okay to plug other companies if you think that they'll do a good job helping people succeed and helping people avoid errors in their business. I name drop all the time in a good way, I hope. But speaking of which, another thing that I really caution people to do in advance of a key selling day and really all year long is to keep an eye on your account health. Make sure your order defect rate is where it should be, which is pretty much at 0, right? Everybody. And make sure your reviews are good, make sure your inventory performance index is good. It's all well and good to order a whole bunch of inventory, but if you don't have the space at FBA, then you're in a bad situation, and all of a sudden you've got to pivot and do merchant fulfilled and all that jazz. It's important to keep an eye on your metrics. Oh, someone asked for the website address of the money lending company, so I'm going to give it to you. Hold on just a second. We do have a link to Kick Further, and I'm also gonna put out David's LinkedIn because he wants all of you to connect with him. So look in the chat, everybody, for a link to Kick Further where you can get more information. And then I'm gonna put in a link to Dave's LinkedIn account. I haven't even looked at it. I think I'm connected to him. So there we go. But yeah, account health is important, making sure your metrics are where, there's nothing worse than Amazon does tell you when you're in trouble. It does tell you when a listing is in trouble. So pay attention to all that, clear out your stranded inventory, make sure your account is squeaky clean, because you don't want to go into a key selling time and have something like that block you, right? You don't want to get an ASIN suspended. You don't want to get your account suspended. You don't want to, not send the amount of inventory you need to actually be successful in because your IPI score is too low. And if you have any questions about any of those acronyms, just pop it in the chat or ask it in the questions. But that comes from my Ecom Engine day. So plug for Ecom Engine. It's a mutual friend of Kick Further and Takeometrics, but Ecom Engine helps you with your feedback and your product reviews and helps you know when somebody's hopping on your listing. They also have inventory management, which is very, very helpful to know how much inventory you should be ordering so that you know how much money to ask David for. So that's not a paid commercial. I just love those guys.
Actually, the order defect rate brought up something that I should share. I think moving a little bit upstream from that is you don't want your product to be defective, and a lot of people these days are maybe shopping around for new manufacturers or ordering from different people, it's important to be really careful when you're doing that, and to make sure you have a really solid QA process where you're testing your products, or you're hiring a third party to test your products, and you're doing it on a large enough sample to make sure that you're not going to have a bunch of bad units go out to customers. So some people get really excited when they find a new manufacturer and the pricing improves, but that could come at a cost. So just be careful, and definitely pay the money to send somebody out there, if it's not you personally, to actually look at the product.
Another word about advertising is how you can set your audiences. With more data, then you've got more information about audiences, and you'll be able to be more targeted with your advertising. So if you need advice about that, contact us. We give advice for free all day long. If you need help with it, then we can talk more from there. But if you didn't do full funnel advertising for Prime Day, you should have enough data from Prime Day now to do full funnel for Q4. And I highly recommend you look into all the different ad types that Amazon offers. Of course, sponsored products is the name of the game, but there are other ad products on Amazon that are performing incredibly well right now that I think that you should look into. I know that we talk a lot about full funnel. Alistair, our CEO, talked about a full funnel approach using data from AI, which we have at Amazon Port in Cannes at the Innovation Festival, not at the film festival. I'd love to go to the film festival, but there was an innovation festival in June. And that's what he talked about. He talked about a full funnel approach and how you can do that, and you can do it smarter without wasting money if you have the right data and you know how to use that data. So maybe you don't need to borrow money from Kickfurther to fund your Amazon advertising initiatives, because maybe you're doing your campaigns in such a way that you're not wasting money, you're spending money in the right place. So we want to talk to you more about that. We'll put, Madeline, if you could pop a link to talk to us in there if you want to talk to us about that, or if you want us to take a look at your advertising and tell you where we think you can make improvements. We can do that with an opportunity analyzer. We can actually also do that with Walmart too. If you're selling on Walmart, if you're advertising on Walmart and you don't know if you're maximizing your spend, we can help you with that. So that's my plug for Takeometrics. Let's talk a little bit about past Prime Days, because this was obviously the biggest one, but you've been in the game for 6 years. I've been in the game for X years, 8 years or so. I don't know, I'm so old, I forget things. But thanks, Madeline, for popping that in there. Prime Day's always been a big deal, right? But there were years where Prime Day was not as good for third-party sellers as it was this year. This year was awesome for third-party sellers. And actually, those of you in the audience that are here with us today, if you want to pop in your insights on Prime Day, we can talk about those too. I mean, did you have a good one? Was it great? Was it explosive? Was it such a bummer that you can't believe it? But I know that a couple of years ago, I talked to a number of sort of like mid-market brands that were in totally awesome categories, you know, categories that always do well, like the ones we mentioned before. But it was just lackluster. Do you think that was likely due to a lack of inventory? Do you think that was likely due to Amazon promoting their own items? What's your hypothesis on Prime Days that have not performed as well as this past Prime Day? I think during COVID, it was probably definitely an inventory issue.
Yeah, I think every day was Prime Day during COVID. It was, people are just buying like crazy. I think Prime Day is continuing to increase in you know, its success, and I think it's a good thing for the industry overall, because having like a lot of sales lumped into Q4 is dangerous for businesses, because it's putting a lot of pressure on a short period of time. And if it doesn't work out, or if it works out too well, then you're kind of missing out either way. So the more that you can sort of reduce seasonality and spread out your sales consistently across the year, the better. So yeah, and as Prime Days become more and more successful, you know, there's multiple Prime Days, and you're sort of spreading out that volume across those and Black Friday and your holidays.
I think that's smart. Did you buy anything? Were you looking for anything? I did 3 live events in 1 week leading up to Prime Day, and they weren't all about Prime Day, oddly. But I made sure to ask everybody, what were you looking for during Prime Day? Did you have something that you were shopping for particularly this past Prime Day?
I didn't. I'm sorry. I went to Costco and bought some steaks.
Oh, no. That's the big show. Like I said, I was looking for a pool vacuum. How about you, Madeline?
I was on the hunt for Bissell's little green machine. I've got a puppy at home that I'm potty training, and I needed a good vacuum on sale. So they actually had a fabulous sale. I'm hoping they have another one in October so I can get some more supplies from Bissell, but great sales on Prime Day.
I bought some stuff I didn't need. That's another thing about a key selling day on Amazon, is that people will be shopping around, and if you've put yourself in the right place, you can end up being an add-on item just because it's a good deal, especially if you're running the right promotions. I know we did Countdown to Prime Day, and we had a section on what promotions to run and when. And oh, and I was doing an e-com cooperative thing that Brandon Furman was on, and he said that one year he had a $1 off discount, but he also had like a percentage off, and it wasn't a detriment to his margin, but everybody thought he'd made a mistake. So he had a crazy amount of sales because everybody was like, ooh, I better get this while it's still messed up, because obviously he doesn't mean to offer it at that kind of price. There are all kinds of, like, within Amazon's policies, things you can do to make people realize what a good deal they're getting. So promotions leading into Q4 are a good idea. You should do those. So are you shopping for anything in particular for Q4? That's gift buying time, right?
I guess, yeah. I gotta figure out what kind of gifts. Gifts are always so hard to get. I don't know. I like getting kitchen gadgets for people because I'm big into grilling and you know, knives and cool stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff is available on Amazon. I also do a lot of shopping at like Home Depot, so that's not as exciting probably for the people here.
At Costco?
Home Depot.
Oh, Home Depot. No, I basically live at Lowe's and Home Depot. It's bad. I have this whole system too, where if I can't find an associate to help me, I just stand there and say help louder and louder and louder until someone comes.
Yeah.
They haven't banned me yet, but I'm waiting. It's gonna happen. But I have the app too. Obviously I should have eaten before this webinar. Sorry, y'all. But so let's recap. If someone wants to order inventory for Q4, when should they do it?
That depends on how long it takes them to place an order and manufacture and receive that order. If somebody wants to pay for the inventory order that they're placing, they should talk to, well, I think they should look around, figure out what your options are. Pick Further's obviously the best, but it takes us two weeks to get the money ready between, you know, getting approved and having the funds available. So I recommend talking to us at least a month before you need to pay for your order, so that everybody's chill and not under pressure. But I think, you know, it's always good to know what your options are, especially with the economy changing so quickly. You know, some options that you were aware of recently are no longer available. And so if you were planning on using them and they're not available, it's time to, go shop for money and see what's available, see how the prices have changed, because a lot of prices have gone up, just like, the cost of borrowing money to buy a house has gone up. So, understand what you're working with when you're, planning on taking on capital to pay for your next production run.
That's great advice. You should be thinking about your advertising now. You should be thinking about a full funnel approach. You should be thinking about how to drive traffic to Amazon from external sources. And I've got a link to a thing I can send you about that if you're interested, just email me. But as opportunity on Amazon continues, right, competition increases. So you have to constantly look for compliant ways to be more competitive, to make your product seen. And obviously, I mean, not to just beat all the dead horses, but you have to make sure your listing is better than everybody else's listing too. That's something I'm talking to a lot of brands about right now. They're getting ready for Q4 and they're like, okay, what changes can I make to my listing right now to make sure they're stuck, they're out there, the algorithm spiders are crawling around, it's all good. What can I do now to make my listings ready for Q4? So think about that. Think about your product images. Think about your A+ or your A++ content and make sure that's all good to go. You want your ads to work. You want your sell-through rate to be great. You want the whole, we talk about a flywheel effect with advertising, but there's a flywheel effect with your whole Amazon presence, your whole e-commerce plan. And actually, not to plug anything too much, but I'm doing a webinar in the middle of August with a couple of good friends in the industry, and we're talking about operational excellence in your e-commerce business. The way Amazon kind of like cropped up and came, it was the Wild West in 2012, When I got into this industry in 2014, it wasn't any less wild, but things have changed. And at first, there were e-commerce businesses that just kind of sprouted up. They were born on Amazon brands, and it was sort of a side gig for a lot of people, right? And now this is business. But a lot of e-commerce professionals don't know things like getting financing, like taxes, and Amazon hasn't made it all that easy, right? With Tax Nexus and all the stuff that's happened in the last several years. So we're going to do a webinar on operational excellence and how to approach your e-commerce business as a business. So I hope y'all will tune in for that. I am sure you will get an email about it. But we are at time. I want to thank David for joining us. Thank Madeline for her ever graceful and ever awesome co-hosting. And we'll see you on the next one. It's on August 1st with my friend from Mobley. But until then, we bid you adieu. Thanks, everyone.